A good guy with a gun stops a shooting in Indiana, and that's still not good enough for the people who are coming out to go and grab your guns. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening there and what that means for you and for me and for society at large. In other news, a demonstration being held in Minneapolis for a person who is the victim of violence. I'm not quite sure which violence yet because I haven't pre-read the article. Well, his rally has crashed by a mom who says that he was shooting into her apartment. So we'll go over just a bit about what's happening with that. Biden claims that he confronted evil dictator in an attempt to go back and get cheap oil from them. And, well, let's just say even the leftoids right now are calling bull crap on that. So we'll go over some of what's going on with that and where we go with that. And Paul Pelosi buys tech chip stocks just before big subsidy vote for tech chip companies. It is going to be all this and more. You're my favorite breakfast tacos. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we have, as usual, on a Monday, a very, very extended episode of Contemporary. Yes, we have the entire top of the screen full of tabs of stuff that happened, both stuff that was left over from Friday, and another busy weekend in politics here. It's almost like it's midterm season or something. Oh, wait. Hey, welcome to midterm season, because we've got a lot to go over here as the Biden admin scrambles to make it better for the people who are running in the midterm elections here. So, we've got to get right down to it. And of course, I'm going to take some time and explain to you which of it is crap and which of it actually has some sort of basis in reality here. So we got to get started. We got to get through it here. We don't want to bleed too far over on the Daily Ignoramus as well. Although I would love to be able to raid the Daily Ignoramus and bring you all over to one of the best midday shows on the internet. So let's get into it. Let's get started. Let's go talk about what happened over the weekend, what happened on Friday, and everything else. By the way, we did get caught up on Thursday, so everything that we did have left behind was from Friday. So let's do it. Let's get started. But before we get started, let's make sure we head on over and check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Porch Boys. That's right. These are all fantastic friends to liberty. These are all fantastic friends to freedom. They're all fantastic friends to culture. So go check all of them out as we work behind the scenes to pull some money together and get a great website built so you guys can go and check them all out in one place. Plus, we'll have new shows from Salt by Brit. We will have new shows from KTZed. News articles, conversations about what's going on in here. It's going to be a great time. We want to build a better news service for the common man, by the common man. So come and check us out over there, turnsofpagesproductions.com. You'll see a startup page over there. Otherwise, go check out all the great programming, and let's get started. I got the wrong tab open here. I got a tab open here that shows Matt Walsh in a side asking, what is a woman once again? All right, let's get started. And we start on Monday, as we always do, on the finance, seeing where it is that your finances are going to be. Now, if you're in a 401k, it looks like you had a little bit going upwards throughout the day. We had one of those days where it just, jump up to the top, steady through the rest of the day, which usually tells me there's a little bit of honking going on in the futures. But, we can't say too much about honking on this program because it does stream out on YouTube. Looks like the Dow is up to 31,288 US. I'm sorry, these aren't US dollars. This isn't Bitcoin. 31,288.26 points. That is up 658.09 points on Friday, or about 2% of a jump. So it's a little bit weird for me to say this too, especially on the futures as well. I know I always question things when things do literally the exact opposite of what they should be doing after another brutal, blistering inflation report. But looking at this one, some of this may be anticipation, looking at what the lowered gas prices could do to the retail sales market. I'm talking electronics, headphones, MP3 players, if people still use those, or their phones, TVs, stuff like that. So the anticipation and the expectation is that if you're spending less on your fuel, you're going to go out and buy these impulse buys once again. I don't think we're there yet, but we will continue to watch this and see where this goes and what happens with that. Looking in at the Bitcoin, which is up over the day to $21,960 US dollars and 50 US cents. That is up 5% just on today, just since midnight. But let's bring this back out and see what happened over the weekend. Looking at the weekend here, going out to the 15th, looks like it kind of did a little bit of a roller coaster and did a fairly significant jump that started to fall back again, and then just overnight, a very, very significant jump once again. So we will continue to watch this and see where this goes. As I've always said, this appears to usually be the most liquid asset people can get their hands on and cash out on quickly. So when you start to see sudden jumps and drops is when you start to see what you think the economy may do in the shorter term than your stock market. So we'll see what happens with that. Looking in at the gas, if you're looking for a reprieve, you have found it. $3.78 at the Costco in Middleton. 379s across the board in Sun Prairie. A 379 in Madison proper. You don't see that very often, where Madison proper is at the same price as Sun Prairie. And 379s the rest of the way across the board again too. So almost $1 down since people started to realize, hey, this is going to cost us in our midterms. And, well, it did. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. I don't have a lot of faith that this is going to stay down, unfortunately. Especially once it starts getting cold and people have to start turning the heater back on. Now, I look at this, and one of the things that I've questioned is whether or not some of this is stagflationary, where We're just getting less demand because fewer and fewer people can afford to put gas in the vehicle, especially at more than $20 at a time, or $40 at a time, because $20 won't get you anywhere anymore. I do question that. I wonder what we're seeing here, and I do wonder what the impact is on what we saw just coming out of the Saudis. So we'll continue to watch that. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. Let's finish up with finance, and, well, we unfortunately have to start off the show with some F's in the chat. I don't have the live chat up. Why don't I have the live chat up? There we go. Now I can see what you guys are saying. Even though I don't typically address it while I'm on air, I do like to see it. Because then somebody will tell me if I accidentally leave my microphone off, which has happened for those of you who are new here. Alright, from IBD. Dow futures rise, market rally eyes, keys resistant, 5 stocks in buy zones. From Ed Carson. Dow futures rose solidly Monday morning, along with the S&P and the NASDAQ. The stock market rally fell last week, but the major indices slashed losses by Friday's close, with the NASDAQ once again facing a big hurdle. Dow component United Health soared into a buy zone on Friday on strong earnings, propelling other health insurers past buy points including Centene and Humana. Option Care Health and Shockwave Medical also jumped into buy areas. What is Shockwave Medical? I've never heard of that, literally. It's a big week for EV giants, Tesla and China's BYD. Tesla earnings are due Wednesday night, with investors looking to see how the automaker weathered the Pinko Pox shutdowns and other headwinds last quarter. BYD, which announced a booming preliminary first half this past week, will begin sales of the Seal sedan, a Model 3 rival. Both Tesla and BYD fell significantly last week and need time to repair. Chip stocks are nowhere near being actionable, but they are showing some signs of strength amid a long, painful downtrend. That's a positive sign for a sustained market rally. UNH is on the IBD leaderboard, United Health and CNC are on the IBD 50, Humana is on the IBD Big Cap 20. Option Care Health was Friday's IBD stock of the day. So, looks like the healthcare markets are going to be what's holding up the futures and what goes off with that. So, hey, maybe people start scheduling their regular surgeries again. Oh no! That's right, we're still afraid of the commie coup. Alright, on the news. Bank of America just missed second quarter earnings estimates as its big increase to loan loss reserves. Revenue topped, BAC lost a fraction. Goldman Sachs reported better than expected quarter 2 results. Shares of the Dow component popped 4%. Delta announced plans to buy 100 Boeing 737 MAX 10 jets with options for 30 more. Its first order with the Dow Jones Aerospace giant in over a decade. Boeing rose 4% in pre-market trading. So, do you think with everything and travel slowing down, they started to maintain some of the stuff that they had out there and said, man, we can't keep putting this in the air. Dude, somebody's going to get hurt. And, oh, bye on government subsidy. I'm not sure. But something to watch, definitely. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.9% versus fair value, with Goldman Sachs and BA providing a boost. The S&P climbed 0.85%, and the NASDAQ gained 1%, signaling NASDAQ open above its 50-day and 10-week lines and approaching some short-term highs. Meanwhile, that recession is coming. I guess we'll see. The 10-year yield rose 4 basis points to 2.97%, but the yield curve remains inverted from the 2-year to the 10-year. Crude oil prices rose 2% to nearly $100 a barrel. Copper futures gained at nearly 3%, which they desperately needed because copper futures and copper itself are so far down, indicating that manufacture is down as well. A key component to the recession. We'll see what happens with that. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So with that, we see the numbers for what's going on in the markets. We're going to touch briefly on the futures report from CNBC, but we're not going to go too far into this because we've already looked at a futures report. From CNBC, Dow futures jumped more than 200 points to start the week as Goldman earnings top expectations. From Sarah Min and Pippa Stevens. U.S. index futures rose sharply on Monday as Goldman Sachs kicked off a busy week of earnings on Wall Street with a report that topped expectations. These moves come as investors anticipate a slew of major earnings this week. Shares of Goldman Sachs popped 3% in the pre-market after the investment bank reported earnings that beat the top and bottom lines. The firm's fixed income traders generated $700 million more revenue than expected. Bank of America reported quarterly revenue that beat analyst expectations. Though the stock was down slightly in the pre-market, JP Morgan Chase and Morgan Stanley kicked off the season for big banks last week, posting mixed quarterly results. We anticipate volatility to remain elevated as the market toggles between pricing recession risk and soft landing probabilities with each piece of data, Citi's Scott Cronert said in a recent note. IBM will post results after the closing bell. Other major earnings on the docket this week include Johnson & Johnson, Netflix, Lockheed Martin, Tesla, United Airlines, Union Pacific, Verizon, and a host of other companies. Let's look and see what we think is going to go up and down. Johnson & Johnson, up. Vaccine profits. Netflix, down. Better options out there. Lockheed Martin, up. War never changes. Tesla, up. Gas prices make you want to buy an electric vehicle. United Airlines, middle of the road. That could go either way because people are starting to travel less over the fact that they're afraid of the pinko pox again. Union Pacific, up, freight. Verizon, that one actually I don't know. Possibly up because of internet packages. So that's what we see for that. All right. That's what we have for finance for the week here. Let's get into the main news of the day. And the first thing that I want to start with is this gentleman here, which I don't have an emote for a catapult. But I'm willing to bet that if we had a trebuchet emote, you guys would probably want to use it and throw it up in the chat after seeing this. Johan Miranda, who is at Johan Comedy, so apparently he's some sort of comedian, tweets out, "After being undocumented for 30 years, I've finally been approved for a U.S. green card, which now in 2022 feels like scoring a ticket to the Titanic." Well, I think I speak for a lot of us when I say, if you really don't like it here, we have no problem saying this to you. Like, seriously, dude. Ain't nobody got a gun to your head saying, okay, now that you've been approved for a green card, you have to be here. There are hundreds of other countries around this world. You can possibly start with the one you emigrated from, which I don't know if it says that in his bio, or... No, he doesn't have a bio. Maybe somewhere in the early life section, I don't know. But, I mean, if it's that bad. I hear Canada's nice this time of year, and that's not me trolling. That's actually probably true. It's probably nice this time of year. Give it about 6 more months, and it probably won't be that nice, but it's probably nice this time of year. So, yeah. If you're that upset about it, take off. But in this country, even if you are that upset about it, you have the freedom to tell us that you're that upset about it. That's why we love this country. When it sucks, we can tell our leaders. We don't have to revere them with religious fervor. And I kind of wish some people would stop doing that, actually. But that's what we see for that. All right, let's talk about Indiana. Because it's an election year, and now you have to go back and say, oh, look at all these bad gun laws that meant let anybody in the world have a gun. Oh my God. Archived from 13 WTHR, that is an NBC affiliate out of Indiana. 4 dead, 2 wounded. In shooting at Greenwood Park Mall, police said Good Samaritan shot and killed shooter. And that Good Samaritan was still not enough for the left. So a guy who went in, which unfortunately, because of the property laws off of there, for the Greenwood Mall, the guy who went in was the Good Samaritan, was also illegally carrying, because I'm certain to bet that every single door in the mall had plastered on there, "This is a gun-free zone! This is a gun-free zone!" Wouldn't be surprised if they rethought that at this point, but regardless, this entire bit of carnage could have been a lot worse. And the negative reactions to this shooter really start to make me a little bit suspicious on whether or not this particular shooter was hired or radicalized by someone on the left, an FBI agent or somebody, and the, quote, Good Samaritan put a stop to their plans. Almost as if this was supposed to have a lot more carnage, but let's not sit and speculate over that right off the bat. Let's actually see what the local NBC affiliate has to say. This is from WTHR staff. Police are investigating a shooting at a Greenwood Park Mall that happened around 6 p.m. on Sunday. 4 people are dead, and police tell 13 News the shooter is among the dead. Greenwood Police Chief James Eisen and 2 others were wounded in the shooting and are being treated at area hospitals. The victims shot were identified by police only as 1 male victim and 4 female victims. One of the victims was a 12-year-old girl who had a minor injury to her back. Eisen said the Good Samaritan witnessed the shooting and shot and killed the shooter. And of course, YouTube is saying playback on other websites has been disabled by the video owner. Let's see if we can actually get our hands on this. Okay, so this is the update. I didn't know if this was the shot. So we'll listen to the chief here for a little bit. But let's read a little bit more off of this first. This has shaken us to our core. This isn't something we've seen in Greenwood before. It's absolutely horrendous, Eisen said. He went on to say that they have trained for active shooter situations like this, and he was proud of the response from law enforcement. The shooter is only identified as an adult male at the time. Police said the shooter had a long rifle and several magazines of ammo. I betcha it said AR on it. So we've got 2 news reports for this. One is a 50-second one, and one is from the police chief. People inside the mall at the time of the shooting told 13 News reporter Logan Gay that they heard 20 gunshots in the food court. IMPD said it appears the shots were only fired in the food court area. IMPD is assisting the scene and said there's no ongoing threat that is known. During a news conference at 7:45 p.m., multiple police units went through the mall to make sure there were no people wounded or still sheltering in place. So let's listen to a couple updates from this. Let's start with this one here from Logan Gay herself.
Update from the Greenwood Police Chief. So here's what we know. 6 people shot, 4 people are dead, including the gunman. 2 people are at the hospital. The shooter had a long gun. It happened in the food court. There was a Good Samaritan. This is very important. A Good Samaritan has reportedly took him down. So law enforcement are still clearing the mall. That's what you see behind us. It's still a heavy law enforcement presence. They still don't have a motive, and they're investigating a suspicious backpack that's in the bathroom. So again, that was just the latest update from the Greenwood Police Chief. They plan to come back in an hour with more details. When I get those details, I'll share them with you ASAP. But again, 6 people shot, 4 people dead, including the gunman, and he was taken down by a Good Samaritan.
All right, so we have that, but we have the update from the chief.
First of all, I would like to say and send out our heartfelt condolences to the victims' families in this tragedy. Like I said earlier, this has shaken us to our core. This isn't something that we have seen here in Greenwood before. It is absolutely horrendous, and our thoughts and prayers are with those loved ones hurting tonight. We have just a quick update. I don't have a lot of additional details at this time. We have cleared the backpack. I'm not going to go into detail with the contents that were found in the backpack. That's still being processed. There was no explosive device, which was our primary concern in a situation like this. The EOD has cleared that. Our SWAT teams from the Indiana State Police, the Greenwood Police Department, and the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department have finished their clearing of all the stores and corridors in the mall. We are confident that there are no additional threats at this time. At this point, the Greenwood Police Department, Johnson County Sheriff's Department, and FBI's evidence collection teams are just now beginning the process of entering the crime scene to process for evidence and get more answers to this senseless tragedy. With that, that's all the information that I have tonight. I will give another update tomorrow. We are going to have a press conference at the Greenwood Police Department at 2 p.m.
Chief, how long will this mall be a crime scene? In other words, will the mall open tomorrow as usual, or are you asking Simon Mall Properties to allow you how many more hours to do your job?
Well, the short and simple answer is it will take as long as it takes. I expect we will be here until the early morning hours tonight. Earlier I was asked if the mall will be open tomorrow. I don't have that answer. That will have to come from Simon Properties.
What are witnesses telling your detectives about it?
So, one of the things is, I mean, you can always tell that these police chiefs, they're never really prepared to go back and give a speech like this. This guy, he just witnessed a crime scene, and he's just witnessed people injured, hurt over a shooting here. But yes, it does appear that somebody with a gun on the property was the one who took this down. So let's read a little bit about that from Fox News. Indiana shopping mall shooter shot dead by armed Good Samaritan, police say. From Bradford Betts. At least 4 people, including the shooter, are dead and others are injured following a shooting in the shopping mall in the suburbs of Indianapolis, according to local reports. Greenwood Chief James Eisen said a Good Samaritan with a handgun at the scene killed the shooter. He said that 2 others were wounded and are being treated in area hospitals. The shooter has only been described as an adult male. Police said he had a long rifle and several magazines of ammunition. Officers responded to a call regarding an active shooter at Greenwood Park Mall in Greenwood, Indiana, just after 6 p.m. Emergency services arrived on the scene while law enforcement officers worked to secure the scene. Indianapolis police and other law enforcement agencies were assisting the Greenwood police with clearing out the mall and clearing the scene. Police later said there was no ongoing threat. Fox News has reached out to the Greenwood Police Department seeking more information. So not a lot of new information with this. So I don't know if we're going to see a lot of the new stuff up here, except for the reactions, of course, when we go over to our social media that say that even the Good Samaritan was evil because he was carrying, and nobody should be carrying. We should be letting the police come back out and do this. Now, my big question here, and I do tend to avoid places that say no concealed carry in them because they're usually a soft target like this. It's usually a guy who's going to carry out a mass shooting like this, looks at that sign and says, "Sweet, no resistance." And again, I don't understand why we're even still having this argument. When the Buffalo shooter literally, quite literally said, "I chose to do this in New York," that has 10-round mag restrictions because I don't want to run into somebody who's legally carrying who has more than 10 rounds. He literally said that in his manifesto. I know we're not supposed to remember that manifesto. We're not supposed to talk about it because we weren't supposed to have read it. It was supposed to be scrubbed from the internet almost immediately, but realistically, when you look and when you go and choose a target, you want to choose something as soft as possible. They're not going and shooting up ranges or police training facilities or NRA events. They're not going in and checking all those or using all those places. They're going to schools, shopping malls, banks, etc. That's weird, and I probably shouldn't admit to this. I actually probably shouldn't, but for the most part, because of my farm boy upbringing, I typically do have a knife in my pocket, a folding knife. It's probably big enough to be considered a concealed weapon. I have no idea. I've never measured it, and I've never asked it the question. But I know, like, the bank that I go to has the big sign that says, "No knives, please. No knives in the building," and I just never take it up out of my pocket. There's no reason for me to take it out of my pocket. There's no reason for me to have it. But yeah, it's habit to have it there. It's not really, in any case, a weapon either. For the most part, I use it to cut boxes open at work. But regardless, that's what they have for that. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire just because it's got a video of Kathy Hochul trying to say that there's no such thing as a good guy with a gun. Good guy with a gun, mass shooter shot in Indiana in mall by armed civilian, from Michael Whitaker. A mass shooter at a mall in Greenwood was shot dead on Sunday by an armed civilian after firing into a crowded food court, killing 3 and wounding 2. According to Greenwood Police, Chief Jim, the man entered the mall with a rifle and several magazines and began firing into a crowd at the mall's food court. Police first responded to the shooting about 6 p.m. The shooter was killed by an as of yet unidentified good guy with a gun. Man, this is just making me not want to go ever into a mall during an election year or anywhere with a crowd during an election year. Because you'll notice we didn't hear about this or see a lot of this in 2021. Or for the first half of 2022, for that matter. The shooting follows in a wake of series of mass killings that have reignited the contentious gun debate in an election year in the U.S., including massacres at an elementary school in Uvalde with cowardly police or police who were ordered to stand down so this would have as much carnage as possible. A grocery store in Buffalo, New York, where the shooter specifically said he chose a state that had draconian mag restrictions to have maximum carnage. And an Independence Day parade in Highland Park, Illinois. And another story that gets worse literally every time a piece of information comes out about it. We're sickened by yet another type of incident like this in our country, Indianapolis Assistant Chief of Police Chris Bailey said. Let's see. Police have reportedly confiscated a suspicious backpack found on the scene, and the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police are investigating the incident. Among the most contentious subjects in the gun debate is the right of the civilians to carry firearms and the effect of such policies have on gun crime. The Supreme Court recently struck down New York restrictions on concealed carry permits, prompting widespread backlash from Democrats. New York Governor Kathy Hochul pledged to add numerous specific requirements to replace the vague proper cause standard, including combing through the applicant's social media history. When confronted on the effectiveness of such a policy would have on reducing gun crime, which has been skyrocketing in recent years, particularly major urban areas, and particularly on even-numbered years, but we don't talk about that, when the data overwhelmingly suggests that concealed carry permit holders are extremely law-abiding compared to both law enforcement and the general population, Governor Hochul doubled down. I don't need to have numbers, Hochul said. I don't need to have data points to say this.
Do you have the numbers to show that it's the concealed carry permit holders that are committing crimes? Because the lawful gun owner will say that you're attacking the wrong person. It's really people that are getting these guns illegally that are causing the violence, not the people going and getting the permit legally. And that's the basis for the whole Supreme Court argument. Do you have the numbers?
I don't need to have numbers. I don't have to have a data point to say that this is going to all I know is I have a responsibility to the people of this state to have sensible gun safety laws. And this one was not devised by the Hochul administration. It comes out of an administration from 1908. I don't need a data point to make the case that I have a responsibility to protect the people of this state.
Somebody who's going to go do a mass shooting or something like that may not go get a concealed carry permit.
I never said there's any correlation between our solution here and the Buffalo case. In fact, I signed a package of 10 laws following Buffalo that dealt with the issues that were raised there.
Hochul's gun laws passed after the Tops grocery store shooting in Buffalo.
I don't have to have the numbers. Don't bring me numbers here because they might go against my narrative, as we see out of Greenwood, Indiana. That completely undercuts the narrative. And again, my big suspicion, because after seeing Buffalo and Uvalde and realizing that both the shooter in Buffalo and the shooter in Uvalde were in the same Discord server both together and with a federal agent, my big question here is, was this intended to be a much, much worse incident? Was this intended to be the mass shooting that would top the Uvalde shooting? And the big question about this was going to be, is this now being nationalized because this is happening in a predominantly white area? Which I don't know the demographics. If anybody's more familiar with Indianapolis, let me know if that's actually the case or not. But regardless, we have one major incident out here that specifically says, yes, a good guy with a gun came and helped to make this not as bad as it could have been. All right, let's talk about Techley Sundberg, or Andrew Sundberg. We're going to start here with Fox 9 KMSP out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, which, big surprise as to why we're talking about this region of the country again. Video of police standoff with Techley Sundberg captured moments his father begged him to talk to negotiators. From Jared Goyette. A live stream of the standoff between Techley Sundberg and Minneapolis police captured a heart-wrenching moment when Sundberg's father begged him to talk to police negotiators only 2 hours before he was fatally shot by Minneapolis police snipers. The video also seems to show that at least for the 2-hour period it was captured, police negotiators never successfully made contact with Sundberg despite repeated attempts, and that the police at the scene remained calm with a group of what appeared to be SWAT team members frequently congregating up by the front entrance to the building. The standoff began at 9:30 p.m. Wednesday after Sundberg allegedly shot into the apartment where a mother lived with her children, and then fired again at officers who were rushing to the family to safety. It ended about 6 hours later at 4:30 p.m. when 2 police officers shot Sundberg. This video, filmed by a user of the Citizen app, starts at about midnight on Friday and runs to 2:30 a.m. It captured 2 moments when Techley Sundberg's father, Mark Sundberg, picked up a bullhorn to address his son. Let's see what we've got here. I do apologize for the low quality of the audio on this. That is all the volume I can get out of that. We're pegged. Not the fun way. The first occurs about 2:10 a.m. By that time, police had spent the last 2 hours repeatedly asking Sundberg to pick up his phone and speak with negotiators. He had stepped out onto the ledge of a third-floor apartment window on 2 occasions. First, around midnight, he gestured at officers and spoke quickly and mostly unintelligibly at one point, repeating the word no in a rapid sequence before going back into the apartment. Then, about 20 minutes later, he stepped out again to take several selfies before returning to the apartment. An MPD officer alternated between broadcasting one of 2 messages over a loudspeaker every few minutes. One message said they had a search warrant and that Tackley should come out with his hands in the air, and the other message asked him to answer the phone when negotiators called, or to text the negotiators back. At no point do the messages give any indication that negotiators had successfully made contact with Tackley Sundberg. At one point, the officer on the loudspeaker said, "Tackley, we cannot hear you when you're trying to communicate with us at the window. Please pick up the phone when the officers are calling to talk with them on the phone." About an hour and 10 minutes in, at 1:10 a.m., police broadcast a message asking Tackley to check his phone for a video message from his father. They repeated the message again 25 minutes later, indicating they had received no response. Then, after another 35 minutes passed, Mark Sundberg attempted to address his son directly over the loudspeaker. "Tackley, this is your dad again. I need you to talk to negotiators. They just want to talk to you, okay? Give them 30 seconds, that's all. Just talk to the negotiators. They're going to call." There's no indication in the video that Tackley heard the father's message or responded. Mark Sundberg tried again, about 5 minutes later. "Tackley, this is your dad again. I love you. I know you love me. Please talk to the negotiators," he said, with his voice breaking at the end. "They really got to talk to you. Please do it for me. Thanks." The Minneapolis City Attorney's Office is in the process of reviewing the body cam footage of the fatal encounter. It will be shown to the family first before it's released to the public. This video is one of the several live streams of the incident captured by users of the Citizen app, all of which are still publicly available in a playlist, and their site can be found here, which we're not going to go over because, well, let's just say that if we do happen to catch on the moment where the police snipers make contact, you're going to get that nice fancy age restriction on YouTube, so we're going to hold off on that. As far as we know, and as far as I know on this so far, we're not completely sure what had happened here. But it does look like he was just out here shooting into another building. Oddly enough, there's a GoFundMe already set up for Tackley Sundberg to cover funeral expenses and to help reimburse his family $20,000 with $16,000 already raised for him. Which is funny because I was the understanding that GoFundMe, you weren't allowed to do that, especially with criminals or people who were in the midst of a court case or people who had committed a criminal act. I was the understanding that was against the rules of GoFundMe, or maybe it's just for people who defended themselves but were meant to be a political pariah. There was a rally for Tackley Sundberg after this, though, and this is part of where the news is coming from. Devon Raming says things boiled over during Saturday's rally in March for Tackley Sundberg when the 24-year-old woman who says that he was shooting into her apartment showed up voicing her frustration with those gathering in front of her building on Sundberg's behalf. Carol Evans' video contains profanity, so if you're watching with kids, earmuffs. It's time for earmuffs off this one. I won't say the words, but they'll still show up on the video. Let's listen.
My idols because you guys are celebrating his life.
It was a terror. I'm sure it was a
This
terror.
is not okay.
You're alive.
Shut up. You guys need to just let it go. Grief in silence. This is not okay. This is not a George Floyd situation. George Floyd was unarmed. He was unarmed.
You're alive.
This is not okay. My kids have to deal with this and probably have a mental illness now because they almost lost their life. There's bullet holes in my kitchen because he sat in the fucking hallway watching my movie.
Wait, Are you serious? Are you dead serious right now? You're going to go so far to try to bring down the BLM narrative off of this that a person who was actively shooting at children is going to be sainted over the woman who could have been the victim of this because, oh, well, you're alive. Are you dead serious? That is disgusting.
I wish it never happened either. That I don't have a place to call home. I can't sleep that night.
She's obviously going through a moment.
This is not okay.
This is what they want to show on the TV. She's obviously going through a moment.
This is not okay. Just go home. Go home. Because none of you guys knocked on that man's door to check his health. Shut up. He comes to my house. Shut up, nigga. You're fucking
I can't believe this is happening. This is beyond disgusting. Oh my. The only clear-cut problem with the fact that police killed this guy who was shooting into an apartment with little kids in it is that they waited so long. I'm sorry. That's the only problem that this should have been, that we should have here, is the fact that they waited so long. That they let this moron go for 2 hours. And Cassandra McDonald points out really, really well, and no, that actually probably would get shut down almost immediately, but is there a GoFundMe for her to move? And Abraham Crespo says, the protesters that responded to her weren't prepared to counter the victim of the original shooting. That's why they all look dumbfounded. Very rarely, if ever, do you see the victim of a crime speak up for themselves. The protesters had nowhere to go. And It's Just Me says that's because the targeted victim of criminal shooting is often dead. Sadly, too many of our country nowadays are very confused about what qualifies as a martyr or a hero. A person intent on committing a violent crime are not heroes when stopped by deadly force. And yet, they're going to try... And yet, they're going to try to make this. Alright, let's go another one here from CamSP. Mom shot at by Tackley Sundberg expresses outrage. Family says both incidents deserve attention. From Mary McGuire. We might see if there's, because it looks like there's more video from outside of what we just saw, so we might go and grab a little bit of that. What started as a rally for a man shot and killed by Minneapolis police quickly took a turn after the mother of two nearly hit by bullets while inside her apartment showed up to share her story on Saturday afternoon. Arabella Yarborough was cooking food for her children Wednesday when she says Tackley Sundberg fired bullets into their home, nearly hitting them. Police responded and helped Yarborough escape. When, according to police, Sundberg also fired at officers, that led to a 6-hour standoff outside the building that lasted until MPD snipers killed the 20-year-old early the next morning. I literally had 5 minutes to live while he had 6 hours to choose life or death, the police stated. They did not want to kill him, Yarborough told Fox 9. She confronted activists at a protest for Sundberg and against police violence on Saturday. A Fox 9 news crew was at the scene. For Yarborough, Sundberg's case is different from those of other well-known black people killed by police. That man was armed. George Floyd was not armed. Breonna Taylor was not armed. Amir Locke, he was armed and he had his own guns, but they came into his home while he's licensed to carry and killed him. I still have questions about that one. I don't know where I stand on the lock one. Because there are two different ways that could be going, and they didn't release a lot of details off of that. He did not fire. This man intentionally tried to kill us, said Yarborough. Both Yarborough and Sundberg's family say things could have ended differently if he was able to get to the mental health support that he needed. Oh, now we're going to talk about mental health. Hey, when it's young white shooter who happens to be draped in a MAGA flag, oh, there's no time to talk about mental health. We just need to come back and take all the guns. Hey, now that it's a black kid that's shot by police, hey, now we've got to go back and talk about the mental health behind everything. Hey, are you guys ready to have the conversation about mental health in this country? Both Yarborough and Sundberg's family say things could have ended differently if he's able to get the mental health support he needed. His parents, Cindy and Mark Sundberg, adopted Tekle from Ethiopia when he was just 4 years old. Oh, goodness. Guess who didn't pre-read this article either, and now gets to be shocked with the rest of you. My heart goes out to that woman. She went through a very traumatic event with those bullets coming through her house, said Mark Sundberg. So we have the attorney who's going to be prosecuting this. We're going to listen to him, but we're going to see if there's any other angle of the protest from Yarborough first. So we got a couple different videos.
In the hallway, the shot went through my door to the pillar to the kitchen. I was cooking food for my kids. It shouldn't know. It doesn't matter. He shouldn't have been dead. Y'all should have came and helped him when he was alive.
Yeah, a lot of anger and frustration from the mother who lived next door to Tekle Sundberg. An emotional evening as Arabella Yarborough recounts the night of the hours-long standoff at her Minneapolis apartment complex. That 6-hour standoff Thursday morning ending with police shooting Tekle Sundberg multiple times, killing him. Today, community members gathered for a protest.
As the protest was starting to get underway against police violence, the woman who lived in the apartment directly next door confronted the family. Now, that was Jeff Storms, the attorney for the Sundberg family.
Which we'll be talking about that in just a bit here, but yeah, that's one angle. We're not going to sit and listen to the anchor the whole time.
Demand justice, and we're demanding the release of the body cam footage. Yes, ma'am. We're here just to respect life, any life, and we're glad that we're not condoning anything, but we just want full and police.
We're not condoning anything, except we want to make sure that the police did the wrong thing. We want to make sure that we can paint the police as bad because they killed another black man. Who cares if he was armed? All right, let's listen to the attorney for the Sundberg family.
As if it just happened, right? And these things don't happen. People take action, people take active affirmative steps, and we were told none of those active affirmative steps. And so at this point, no one has any idea as far as I know. I'm assuming there's a significant amount of video that exists, it's just not being shared with any of us at this point. Thank you.
So, that's what we know so far going on with that. I'm going to skip this one just because we've seen enough of the demonstration about it already. But it is interesting to sit back and try to piece together and figure out who is supposed to be supported in something like this. Because, you know, the protesters just wanted to come out and yell BLM and all cops are bastards and all this kind of stuff going down the street. And yet it doesn't seem... I can't look at the situation like this and say that wasn't a justified shot that they took. I can't. There's no way. Oh, those who knew Techley remembered him for his love of art, photography, and his cat. Okay, so why was he shooting a rifle into somebody else's apartment and shooting at police when they tried to get her to safety? Excuse me. So, that's where we're at with that so far. A little bit more stuff. We'll be talking about Uvalde here as well. But Kansas City police officer shoots fellow cop while intending to shoot suspect named Malcolm Johnson.
Yeah.
Hang on. She then incorrectly thinks the gunshot came from the suspect shooting and proceeds to shoot him twice, killing him. KCPD tried to cover this up until video was released.
You're gonna clean it?
Yeah. Go this side. Go this side.
Hold on, nigga. I can't see nothing from that side.
I suppose we should have thrown earmuffs up for that one too.
Damn, he's strong.
He is strong.
He's a regular customer.
Hey, that guy's family. Oh shit, she's about to take out her strap. She's about to shoot that nigga.
Oh, damn.
They killed him?
Yeah. They killed him. They killed him.
Hey, this is bad.
This is bad, bro. He's not doing nothing, bro. Oh, he shot the police.
He did?
Yeah.
Over there. Oh.
We're helping.
You're gonna clean it?
Yeah.
I think the cherry on the top of that one was at the very end. We're helping. So it does appear that a cop shot at another cop, and the cop that got shot at thought the bullet came from the suspect, and yeah, there's that. But this one's not really taking off either. All right, let's talk Uvalde. Uvalde report 376 officers, but egregiously poor decision. Man, how big is Uvalde? Because I didn't think that it was big enough to warrant having 400 officers. From Jake Bleberg and Paul J. Weber. Nearly 400 law enforcement officials rushed to a mass shooting in Uvalde Elementary School, but egregiously poor decision-making, tinfoil, resulted in more than an hour of chaos before the gunman, who took 21 lives, was finally confronted and killed, according to a damning investigative report released on Sunday. The nearly 80-page report was first to criticize both state and federal law enforcement, and not just local authorities in South Texas town, for the bewildering inaction by heavily armed officers as a gunman fired inside of 2 fourth-grade classrooms at Robb Elementary School, killing 19 students and 2 teachers. Although the report is mounted to the fullest account to date of one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history, but it did not satisfy all parents and relatives of the victims, some of whom blasted the police as cowards and called for them to resign. 400 officers. And not a one of them could go in. This was either planned or that entire force, well, if it was planned, the entire force needs to be dismantled anyway. This was either planned, though, or the entire force needs to be dismantled. If you are in Uvalde and you see a police officer, turn your back on him. For shame. Let them know that they're not welcome anywhere, because they let children die when they were in a position to do something. Be martyred and hero worshipped for the rest of time. Even if they had died, there would be statues erected to them. Instead, 400 of them just stood around and did nothing. If you see them, cross your arms and turn your back. There's no excuse for any of this. None. Zero. All right, let's talk Middle East. Because our president was just there, Iran sanctions 61 more Americans as nuclear talks hit an impasse. From Reuters. Iran has imposed sanctions on 61 more Americans, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, for backing an Iranian dissident group, Tehran said on Saturday, as months of talks to revive a 2015 nuclear deal remained at an impasse. Others blacklisted by Iran's foreign ministry for voicing support for the exiled dissident group Mujahideen al-Khalq included Republican former President Donald Trump's personal attorney Rudy Giuliani and former White House National Security Advisor John Bolton, Iranian state media reported. The sanctions issued against dozens of Americans, most of whom don't have a place in the administration right now, and the various groups let Iranian authorities seize any assets they hold in Iran. I don't think that's going to be a real big loss there. The steps announced as Democrat U.S. President Joe Biden wrapped up his trip in the Middle East appear largely symbolic given the likely absence of such assets. Yeah, they get to go and grab the sword and shake it and say, "Back to America!" and really do nothing else. Giuliani, Pompeo, and Bolton, all Republicans, have been widely reported to have taken part in the MEK events and voiced support for the group. Both Pompeo and Bolton served under Trump. Yeah, Bolton was trying to possibly orchestrate a coup d'etat, because apparently he does those all the time. From the Associated Press, Biden and Lapid agreed to stop Iran nuke program, but differ on how. From Amir Madani, Josh Boak, and Chris Majerian. Why are we affecting energy policy in another country? Can somebody explain that to me? Because that doesn't work up here for me. President Biden and Prime Minister Yair Lapid stood side by side on Thursday and declared that they would not allow Iran to become a nuclear power. They parted ways, though, on how to get there. Biden, in a joint news conference after a one-on-one with the Israeli leader, said he still wants to give diplomacy a chance. Moments earlier, Lapid insisted that words alone won't thwart Tehran's nuclear ambitions. While Biden suggested his patience with Iran was running low, he held out hope that Iran could be persuaded to join a dormant deal intended to prevent it from building a nuclear weapon. Ooh, are we going to see more pallets of cash? On your taxpayer dime? I continue to believe that diplomacy is the best way to achieve this outcome, Biden said on the second day of the 4-day visit to Israel and Saudi Arabia. He also stressed on his first trip to the Middle East as president the importance of furthering ties between Israel and its Arab neighbors. Hours before Biden is set to become the first U.S. leader to fly directly from Israel to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the kingdom's General Authority of Civil Aviation announced early Friday the decision to open the kingdom's airspace for all carriers that meet the requirements of the authority for overflying. It signaled the end of its long-standing ban on Israeli airliners flying over its territory in an incremental step towards normalization of the relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel that builds on the strong but informal ties the erstwhile foes have developed in the recent years over the shared concerns about Iran's growing influence in the region. So, Israel wants to go to war using the U.S. military against Iran. Oops, did I say that last part out loud? Israel wants to go to war with Iran to keep them from developing a nuclear weapon. And Biden wants to go and be diplomatic while going into Saudi Arabia and begging them for oil. Aren't you excited for where this country is going? I don't even need to go into this article. The headline says it all. From Reuters, Biden says U.S. will remain an active partner in the Middle East. Who was shocked? Who was shocked that the United States is going to continue to nation build in another nation, or in another part of the world, far, far away from our own? In the name of Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. In the name of Halliburton. Who would have thought, in the name of Raytheon even for that matter, who would have thought that we're going to be staying over there forever? Saw that coming. From Steve Holland and Renshaw. President Biden on Saturday said the U.S. will remain an active, engaged partner in the Middle East and urged leaders gathered at an Arab summit to see human rights as a powerful force of economic and social change. The United States is invested in building a positive future in the region. It's going to be positive for my stock portfolio and the donations I get from Northrop Grumman. It's a positive partnership with all of you, man. And the U.S. is not going anywhere. Told ya. This is why I bought Raytheon stock as soon as he was inaugurated. Biden is seeking to start a new chapter in the U.S. involvement in the Middle East, hoping to move past U.S. military conflicts and instead push for a region that respects individual nations' domestic affairs, but seeks economic integration and shared differences amid concerns over Iran. Nation building. Biden, on his first Middle East trip as president, has focused on Saturday's summit with 6 Gulf states and Egypt, Jordan, and Iraq, while downplaying a meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And yet, that was the focus of everything, the fist bump that stopped the world. Yeah, who would have thought that we're going to be staying in the Middle East forever? From the BBC. This is video from the BBC. Palestinian people deserve a state of their own. President Biden has reiterated the U.S.'s commitment to a two-state solution in the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. He was speaking after a meeting with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Let's listen.
Palestinian people deserve a state of their own that's independent, sovereign, viable, and contiguous. 2 states for 2 peoples, both of whom have deep and ancient roots in this land, living side by side in peace and security. Both states fully respecting equal rights of the other citizens. Both peoples enjoying equal measure of freedom and dignity. That's what this is fundamentally all about. Every person has a right to be treated with dignity. It's simply basic. I know that the goal of the 2 states seems so far away, while indignities like restrictions on movement and travel or the daily worry of your children's safety are real and they are immediate. The Palestinian people are hurting now. You feel it, you can just feel it. your grief and frustration. In the United States, we can feel it. But we've never give up on the work of peace. You know, there must be a political horizon that the Palestinian people can actually see or at least feel. We cannot allow the hopelessness to steal away the future that so many have worked toward for so long. So even if the ground is not ripe at this moment to restart negotiations, the United States and my administration will not give up on trying to bring the Palestinians and Israelis and both sides closer together.
See, and part of the problem with this, now, I would actually love to see a two-state solution as well. Part of the problem with that is that neither one of the states can agree to what their territory will be. They both want to have the whole region. The Palestinians believe that they were robbed of their ancestral homeland by the British when it was sold back over to Israel to make their own nation after World War II. And Israel claims that this has been their land since Abraham was walking around. Well, actually, not since Abraham was walking around, because they've been to Egypt, they've been back out of Egypt, and they wandered the desert for 40 years before settling back down here under Aaron after Moses passed away. But both states believe that they're entitled to the entire region. But we will continue to see where that goes, and I'm sure that we'll be playing both sides of that. I want to hear from our friends over at NPR. Briefly into this one, because of the speech covering most of this here, Biden says the U.S. will work to improve Palestinians' lives. This is from Daniel Estrin, Asma Khalid, Ayanna Archie, and Bill Chappelle. And in order to bring all four of these people together to tell you that you are supposed to hate Israel and love Palestine, NPR needs our money, comrades. So hit that donate button, because it's not your money, it's our money. And your taxpayer subsidies are not doing enough to hold them up there and make sure that they can put their quiet, dulcet tones out there on the air. So hit that donate button, because NPR, they need to tell you why communism is the proper way to go through this. Never printing a reality. National Progressive Radio, let's see what it is they have to say. President Biden reiterated his commitment to the elusive two-state solution, the long-sought vision of an independent Palestine and Israel coexist on Friday, as he spoke alongside Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas in Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. I would bet you anything that any Christian who found out that Bethlehem was one of the occupied territories is sitting there and seething and has, well, let's be completely honest, no idea why they're seething. The U.S. and my administration will not give up on trying to bring the Palestinians, Israelis, and both sides closer together, Biden said. He added that he believes that with Israel improving its relations with its neighbors in the Middle East, the momentum could reinvigorate the peace process between Palestinian people and the Israelis. But for the time being, both Abbas and Biden acknowledged that the political moment is not yet right for peace talks to resume. In their joint statement, Abbas urged Biden to continue reversing Trump policies and aid in other issues, and Biden pledged to help improve the day-to-day lives of the Palestinian people. So there you go, another aid package coming out of your taxpayer dollars. Aren't you excited? And here is Biden while he's in Israel. The stimulants wore off. Either that or he saw the ghost or he saw the dead person, because he's close to death's door as well. Again, going up to go shake hands with air. Come here, Grandpa. No, just sit down. Over here. At what point do we come back out and say, okay, Grandpa, it's time to sit down, it's time to retire? From the Associated Press, Biden's Saudi visit aims to balance rights, oil, and security. From Amr Madani, Aya Batrawi, Ellen Nickermeyer, and Chris Majirian. President Biden met Friday with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the man he once pledged to shun for human rights violations. Yeah, that's the funniest part. I'm with freedom of the press, man. We're gonna be tough with bin Salman. Come on, man. We gotta be tough on these dictators. I'm not gonna let them forget about this. Please send us oil. Come on. As he tried to reset an important diplomatic relationship, bolster Middle East security, increase the global flow of oil. It was the first encounter of the two leaders, and their chummy gesture was swiftly criticized, but Biden insisted that he did not shy away from pressing the Crown Prince on the kingdom's abuses. Yeah, and fortunately there's no video of that anywhere. Particularly in the 2018 murder of US-based writer Jamal Khashoggi, which US intelligence believes was approved by the heir to the throne. I think it was the CIA, so... I said, very straightforwardly, as for an American president to be silent on the issues of human rights is inconsistent with who we are and who I am, Biden said after the meeting. I will always stand up for our values. I told that salmon guy. I told him, I said, if you want to violate human rights, well, come on, man, let's go behind the woodshed, okay? I'm telling you, man. I dealt with Corn Pop with a bike chain around his fist, okay, man? Let's do a push-up contest. Biden said Prince Mohammed claimed that he was not personally responsible for the death of Khashoggi, who wrote for the Washington Post, "Where democracy goes to die in darkness." I indicated I thought that he was, the president said. He replied. Though he brushed off any focus on the fist bump, it was described as shameful by Fred Ryan, the Post publisher. It projected a level of intimacy and comfort that delivers MBS to the unwarranted redemption that he's been desperately seeking, Ryan said, referring to the Crown Prince by his initials. Biden had long refused to speak to Prince Mohammed until he needed oil. Isn't it funny how that works in U.S. diplomacy? We're going to be tough on dictators until we need oil. But concerns about human rights have been somewhat eclipsed by other challenges, including Iran's nuclear ambitions and rising gas prices in the wake of Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Stop trying to blame that. Your failed policies were doing that already. At the same time, Saudi Arabia wants to strengthen its security relationship with the United States and secure investments to transform its economy into one less reliant on pumping oil. For now, it appears the two leaders are taking incremental steps together. Biden announced that the U.S. peacekeepers would leave the Red Sea island of Tehran by the end of the year, paving the way for Saudi Arabia to develop tourist attractions there. Because of a complex diplomatic arrangement governing control of the strategically located island, America's departure required Israel's assent, and the deal was the latest reflection of warmer relations between Israelis and Saudis. The agreement followed an earlier announcement that the Saudis were ending strict limits on Israeli commercial flights over their territory. Biden also said progress was being made on extending a ceasefire in Yemen, where Saudi Arabia has been battling Iran-backed militants for years, leading to a humanitarian crisis. Just a hint, that's another one that we set up. The U.S. played down expectations for any immediate increases in Saudi oil production, which could help alleviate high gas prices that are politically damaging to Biden back home, but of course we can't go and have new drilling on federal lands over here. But after his meeting with the Crown Prince, Biden hinted that relief could be on the way, although, come on, man, you won't see that for another couple weeks, man, come on. The current OPEC Plus agreement expires in September, opening the door to potentially higher production after that, although questions remain about how much excess capacity the Saudis have. Well, they sure had a bunch of excess capacity back in June of 2020 when they were trying to hammer down on China and Russia. But again, the big part of that is, okay, that's fine. We'll get some from dictators that hate us. The dictators that you have said yourself that you would renounce, you're going to go back and make them rich. After swearing up and down that you were going to renounce them, you're going to reward them when we have oil companies over here that are chomping at the bit to get into Texas on federal land and build more of our oil future back over here. Let's go, Brandon. Let's take a moment to celebrate Max Boot. Defiant Elves tweets out opinion. Trump's corrupted foreign policy, coddle the dictator, abuse the ally. From Max Boot, November 14th, 2019 at 2:05 p.m. 7 a.m. July 17th, 2022. Cut Biden some slack. U.S. presidents have to deal with dictators. With a fist bump. Yeah, bro! I'm totally hip and cool, man. It has nothing to do with principles. It has to do with the letter after the name of the person in power. Another one for the Associated Press. The latest Biden trip won't immediately impact gas prices. We'll touch briefly on this because we talked about it a bit in the other AP article. President Biden said Friday that gas prices across the U.S. have been coming down every single day. To the best of my knowledge, man! But cautioned that his visit to Saudi Arabia may not have an immediate impact on what Americans are paying at the pump. No, it's not going to hit until probably just about December. You're going to see some projection pricing coming out. That's what you're seeing right now. It's not the gas tax holiday because that got foiled by Joe Manchin. What you're seeing now is projection with the thought that they're going to start getting cheaper gas from Saudi Arabia, cheaper oil to refine from Saudi Arabia. And the gas companies trying to move their higher price stock out of there in a hurry so they can make room to flood themselves up with oil from a dictator who's about to get rich off the U.S. once again. And if it was coming from us, you'd see those prices sink like a stone because you would have hundreds of thousands of dollars fewer in transportation costs. But we won't talk about logistics. The Biden admin has said that record high rates of U.S. inflation aren't yet reflecting falling gas prices, which have been dropping in many parts of the country since mid-June. Asked about whether his trip to the Middle East would further accelerate those declines, Biden responded, I suspect you won't see that for another couple weeks. Speaking to reporters, the president was also asked about Democrat West Virginia Senator Manchin's opposition to a White House-backed energy plan that Biden says can lower costs while also combating climate change. Well, the reality is that it can't do both at once. Manchin's refusing to support the plan could mean it won't pass the Senate. Biden said, I didn't negotiate with Manchin, but added of his climate goals. I'm not going away, man. Come on. Biden vowed to use every power I have as a president to move the U.S. towards greener energy, which means that Nancy Pelosi has several hundred green energy companies sitting in her portfolio. What else do we have? Peter Alexander, who is of NBC, Jamal Khashoggi, will you apologize to his family? I shouted to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the end of his press pool spray. MBS had a slight smirk before a Saudi aide grabbed my arm tightly. Yeah, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about things like that, and that's why I think it's crap that Biden went and confronted him about Jamal Khashoggi, because we don't talk about these things. We're trying to get oil from people who hate us. From the Daily Wire. Biden claims he confronted Mohammed bin Salman over murder. Top Saudi official pushes back. From Ryan Saavedra. Saudi Arabia pushed back on Democrat President Biden's claim late last week that he confronted Prince Mohammed bin Salman over the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Biden's claim comes after he was photographed fist-bumping MBS during his visit to the kingdom last week. Biden previously pledged that while running for president, he wanted to treat Saudi Arabia like a pariah state. Yeah, my pariah! Biden claimed during a press conference on Friday that he raised Khashoggi's murder at the top of the meeting, making it clear what I thought at the time of it and what I think now. And it was exactly, I was straightforward, man, and direct in discussing it, he continued. I made my view crystal clear, man, come on. I said very straightforwardly, for an American president to be silent on an issue of human rights is inconsistent with who we are and who I am. I'll always stand up for our values, man. Come on, man. Biden later claimed that he told MBS he thought that MBS was responsible for the murder, and MBS denied those allegations, and that MBS indicated all parties were involved in the murder were brought to justice. Adel al-Jubeir, the Saudi Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, who was in the meeting with Biden and MBS, told U.S. journalists that he didn't hear Biden make those remarks to MBS. MBS reportedly scolded Biden to his face about actions that he claims that the U.S. was responsible for that were similar to Khashoggi's death. These are issues, mistakes that happen in any country, including the U.S., Prince Faisal bin Farhan, the Saudi foreign minister, told CNN. The Crown Prince pointed that the U.S. has made its own mistakes and taken necessary action to hold those responsible, accountable, and address these mistakes, just as the kingdom has. Why don't you guys talk about something that matters? Oh, that's Biden. I'm happy to answer a question that matters. Here's Biden returning to the White House off the helicopter.
President Biden, the Saudi foreign minister, says he didn't hear you accuse the Crown Prince of Khashoggi's murder. Is he telling the truth? Is the Saudi foreign minister lying, President Biden?
Oh, are we getting a look, Jack? Are we getting a look, Jack?
The foreign minister says he didn't hear you accuse the Crown Prince of Khashoggi's murder. Is he telling the truth?
No. He was at the fist pump, Mr. President. Why don't you guys talk about something that matters? I'm happy to answer questions that matter. Will inflation go down from here, Mr. President?
President Biden, will you be honoring your campaign pledge to release all the marijuana inmates in prison?
I don't think anyone should be in prison for the use of marijuana. We're working on the crime bill now. Thank you.
Why don't you guys talk about something that matters? Okay, let's talk about inflation. That was funny. All right, what else do we have? Biden's quiet campaign to bring Saudi Arabia around on climate. Good luck. From Zach Coleman. As President Biden visits Jeddah, his admin has quietly been working with Saudi Arabia's Middle Eastern neighbors on climate change. Oh, you're serious. Let me laugh harder. In part to exert pressure on the kingdom to act to slow planetary warming. Special climate envoy John Kerry made frequent trips early in the Biden admin on a private jet with only him on board to the UAE and Qatar to nudge Saudi Arabia into friendly competition on climate change. According to several people familiar with the admin strategy, and the Biden admin has simultaneously courted Saudi Arabia to help develop technologies to reduce the greenhouse gases produced by burning oil and gas that could help prolong the use of fossil fuels. And also, by the way, shutting down the Saudi Arabian economy entirely. And shifting it over to components that are made in China. The effort reflects delicate diplomacy as the U.S. attempts to mend ties with Saudi Arabia, a former Middle Eastern friend turned foe following a series of disagreements ranging from a now defunct nuclear proliferation deal with Iran and the murder of Saudi national and journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Oh, that's funny. I demand that you shut down your entire economy, which goes on fossil fuels entirely. For green energy. Would you love to be a fly in the wall in that meeting? From CNN, why Biden's fist bump with MBS was such a disaster. Analysis. Op-ed. From Chris Saliza. In the weeks leading up to President Biden's trip to the Middle East, one question dominated. Would he meet with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and if he did, what would his demeanor be? After all, MBS has been linked by the U.S. intelligence community directly for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul, which used to be Constantinople. Now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. Yes, it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. In 2018, which the Biden admin released in February of 2021, concluded that the MBS had approved the operation that led to Khashoggi's death. And as a candidate, Biden had struck the hard line with the Saudis. In one of the 2020 presidential debates, he was unequivocal in his denunciation of the Saudis for their role in Khashoggi's death. Well, we are, in fact, going to make them pay the price and make them, in fact, a pariah that they are, Biden pledged. Given all that, there was reason to wonder how Biden would play all this. On Thursday, the White House confirmed, as expected, that Biden would in fact meet with MBS and would bring up the killing of Khashoggi. My views on Khashoggi have been made absolutely positive and clear, and I've never been quiet about asking about human rights. Alright, in defending himself against the seeming contradiction of calling the country a pariah less than 2 years ago and granting Saudi leaders exactly what they wanted, an audience with the American president, as Biden explained, there's so many issues at stake, and we wanted to make clear that we can continue to lead in the region and not create a vacuum, which means that we'll be over there forever, nation building, forever. A vacuum that's filled by China and Russia, against the interests of both Israel and the U.S. and many other countries. I can't believe how many people at CNN are cheering for us to be in forever wars. Which, well, okay, what Biden didn't mention was the elephant in the room. Saudi Arabia has oil. Lots and lots of oil that the U.S. needs. That's always been true, but it's even more true with Biden pledging not to import any oil from Russia due to its invasion of Ukraine. But they'll take it from Saudi Arabia, which they're supposed to be making a pariah state. But all that pales in comparison to how Biden ultimately handled the meet and greet with MBS. The two men fist bumps, a broy move of perceived friendship and camaraderie that gave the Saudi leader exactly what he wanted, a door to return back to international good graces. Alright. going to skip this one because we talked about that earlier. But I wanted to grab this one here. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders slams Biden visit to Saudi Arabia. From Rachel Scully. Senator Bernie Sanders on Sunday criticized President Biden's visit to Saudi Arabia, saying that he does not believe that type of government should be rewarded with a visit by the President of the United States. It should be only a socialist government like I am trying to put into this country, where we take from the rich, except for me, and give it out to everybody else after we embezzle a little bit off the top. When asked by ABC's This Week host Martha Raddatz whether Biden should have visited the country, Sanders replied, "No, I don't think so. You have a leader of a country who was involved in the murder of a Washington Post journalist, and the Washington Post, they say glowing things about socialism and me. So we have to be careful with them," he added. I don't think that type of government should be rewarded with a visit by the President of the United States. I think that they should be in the breadline. That's a good thing. So let's listen.
And we're joined now by Senator Bernie Sanders. It's good to see you this morning, Senator Sanders. President Biden is back from his trip, a trip that has gotten a lot of blowback from even your fellow Democrats, especially that fist bump with the Saudi crown prince. You've referred to Saudi Arabia as a brutal dictatorship that crushes democracy. Should Biden have gone?
No, I don't think so. You have a leader of that country who was involved in the murder of a Washington Post journalist. I don't think that type of government should be rewarded with a visit by the President of the United States.
But at the heart of the discussions was oil, and President Biden said that Saudis would take action in the coming weeks. Could that make a difference? And doesn't that explain why he went? What would you have done?
Well, I'm sure that, Martha, I'm sure that is why he went. But the truth of the matter is, if you're looking at the outrageously high cost of gas at the pumps right now, one of the things we've got to look at is the fact that while Americans are now paying $4.50, $4.80 for a gallon of gas, the oil company profits in the last quarter have been extraordinarily high. And I happen to believe that we've got to tell the oil companies to stop ripping off the American people, and if they don't, we should impose a windfall profits tax on them.
So would you just ignore the Saudis if you were president?
Look, you got a family that is worth $100 billion, which crushes democracy, which treats women as third.
The billionaires! It's all the billionaires' fault. I'm telling you here now.
Class citizens, which murders and imprisons its opponents. And if this country believes in anything, we believe in human rights, we believe in democracy. And I just don't believe that we should be maintaining a warm relationship with a dictatorship like that.
Bernie Sanders, everyone. It's like they're scripted. They can't go off of their particular scripts. It's the billionaires in the United States that we need to come back and crack down on. And what we should do is we should just confiscate all of their wealth, all of their earnings, and give all of their earnings to the people who will vote for me. I mean, the poorest people in the country. All right, and what would this be without a gaffe from the gaffe master himself? Biden flub speech praises selfishness of U.S. troops. That poor interpreter.
For the first time since 9/11, an American president is visiting this region without American troops being engaged in combat and a combat mission in the region.
Apparently that's not going to load. Let's actually reload this and see if it'll come up. With or without the banner ad, of course.
9/11, an American president is visiting this region without American troops being engaged in combat and a combat mission in the region. We'll always honor the bravery and selflessness and sacrifices of the Americans who served, including my son, Major Bo Biden, who was stationed in Iraq for a year. And we'll never forget the memory of the 7,054 American troops who made the ultimate sacrifice while serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere over the last 2 decades. But today, I'm proud to be able to say that the era of land wars in the region, wars involving huge numbers.
Dude, he is falling asleep right there. Look at him. I'm proud to say there's no more. Grandpa, wake up! No, I'm proud to say that there's no more land wars in the region, and the selfishness of the soldiers. Can I go home now? I want butterscotch. Come on, man. All right, let's go talk about January 6th, because that took another twist into witch hunt territory. From CNN, to start off with that, Secret Service erased text messages from January 5th and 6th, 2021. After oversight officials asked for them, Watchdog says, "You have been investigating this entire thing for 18 months. Why didn't you reach out for the text messages before?" And I know what we're doing here. I know that there's outrage brewing onto social media from the loudest voices on social media to right now try to turn public opinion against anybody who is bipartisan. The Secret Service has no partisan affiliation. But that's not good enough for our friends on the left. They are, as they always have been, looking for an entirely congressional-controlled organization that is completely partisan to the left. From Jamie Gangel, Zachary Cohen, and Ryan Nobles. The Secret Service erased text messages from January 5th and 6th shortly after they were requested by oversight officials investigating the agency's response to the U.S. Selfie Fest. According to a letter given to the House Select Committee investigating the Selfie Fest and first obtained by CNN. The letter, which was originally sent to the House and Senate Homeland Security Committees by the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General, says the messages were erased from the system as part of the device replacement program after the watchdog asked the agency for records related to electronic communications. First, the department notified us that the many U.S. Secret Service text messages from January 5th and 6th were erased as part of a device replacement program. The USSS erased those messages after OIG requested records of electronic communications from the U.S. Secret Service as part of an evaluation of the events at the Capitol on January 6th. The letter from DHS IG Joseph Kufari stated. Second, DHS personnel have repeatedly told the OIG inspectors that they were not permitted to provide records directly to OIG, and that such records had to first undergo review by DHS attorneys, Kufari added. This review led to a weeks-long delay in OIG obtaining records and created confusion over whether all records had been produced. The Intercept was the first to report the existence of the letter. The Homeland Security Inspector General did not immediately respond to CNN's request for comments. The U.S. Secret Service pushed back on the allegation in a statement saying that the insinuation that the Secret Service maliciously deleted text messages following a request is false. In fact, the Secret Service has been fully cooperating with the OIG in every respect, whether it be interviews, documents, emails, or texts. The statement continued later. DHS OIG requested electronic communications for the first time on February 26, 2021. After the migration was well underway, the Secret Service notified DHS OIG of the loss of certain phones' data, but confirmed to OIG that none of the text it was seeking had been lost in the migration. Gary Peters, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, called the allegations concerning in a statement on Thursday. "We need to get to the bottom of whether the Secret Service destroyed federal records or the Department of Homeland Security obstructed oversight. The DHS Inspector General needs these records to do an independent oversight, and the public deserves to have a full picture of what occurred on January 6th, the Michigan Democrat said. Benny Thompson, who chairs both the House Homeland Security and the January 6th committees, had acknowledged in a statement Thursday evening that the panel had gotten the letter. The Committee on Homeland Security received a letter from the DHS Inspector General regarding the Secret Service deleting text messages, and the Office of Inspector General requested as a part of its investigation into the January 6th attack on the Capitol. So, they actually did request these almost immediately after they started investigating. I do have concerns about the fact that they started doing a data migration almost immediately after one of what they knew was going to be panned as one of the biggest events in history, but while the letter does not say whether the DHS watchdog believes these text messages were erased intentionally or for a nefarious reason, the incident adds to growing questions about the Secret Service's response to the U.S. Capitol selfie fest. No, it speaks to the fact that most everything that they've brought forward now has fallen apart under the slightest, tiniest little bit of pushback. And now they're looking for somebody else to come back out and blame. And again, trying to make partisan an organization that has defended every president from every party since it was incepted. Historically, and I can't speak for now, but historically, one of the most nonpartisan parts of our government, the U.S. Secret Service. We've got a small amount of analysis that we'll touch on briefly here from our friends over at NPR. Juliana Kim writes, what the subpoena for the Secret Service's erased text means for the January 6th probe. And remember, once again, hit that donate button because NPR can't tell you how perfect communism is unless you give them your money, I mean our money, comrade. So hit that donate button. Make sure you support the communists at NPR because it's not your money, comrade, it's our money. Let's grab another one from those who are never printing reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is they have to say. The Secret Service has been subpoenaed in the ongoing probe into the U.S. Capitol Selfie Fest on January 6, 2021, a move that former federal prosecutor calls aggressive and significant. The House Select Committee leading the investigation is asking the federal agency to turn over reportedly deleted text messages from the days surrounding the attack, as well as any relevant action reports. The Secret Service has until Tuesday to produce agents' phone records that some believe may shed light onto President Trump's actions during the riot. The Secret Service has recently garnered attention after former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson lied to the January 6th committee. According to Hutchinson, Trump had a heated exchange with his Secret Service detail that she heard from her friends, brothers, cousins, uncles, college roommates, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, second cousins, friend. With the Secret Service detail after demanding to be driven to the Capitol on the day of the insurrection, the Selfie Fest. And yet, they can't bring somebody in to testify live under oath about what had actually happened there. They'll pre-record it. I guarantee they'll bring them in and pre-record it. Anthony Guglielmi, a spokesperson for the Secret Service, told the NPR that his agency plans to swiftly respond to the panel subpoena, though it's unclear what records will be retrievable. The Secret Service insists that the January 6th probe had its full and unwavering cooperation. The erased phone data was brought to light earlier this week by Joseph Cuffari, the Inspector General for the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees the Secret Service. In a letter to Congress, Cuffari accused the Secret Service of erasing relevant text messages after his office requested such records, generally causing confusion and delays to the office's investigation. Guglielmi has repeatedly denied the agency maliciously deleted text messages and disputed claims as agency has been uncooperative. The Select Committee has our full and unwavering cooperation since its inception in March of 2021, and that does not change, Guglielmi said in a statement to NPR. So, we will see the next battle going over this, and we will continue to see where this goes. From the Hill, Trump campaign operative Roman delivered false elector list to Capitol Hill on January 6, according to a report. Okay. A former Trump campaign operative delivered lists of false electors on January 6 to Capitol Hill in an effort to give them to former President Pence, who was presiding over the Senate that day. Two people familiar with the matter told Politico. The sources told Politico Friday that Mike Roman, who served as Trump's director of Election Day operations, delivered fake election certificates to Mike Kelly's chief of staff at the time. The two people told Politico the chief of staff deputized a colleague to share copies of the list around the Capitol after receiving them from Roman. Roman did not respond to multiple requests for comment from Politico and did not immediately respond to a request for comment from The Hill. The House Select Committee investigating the Capitol Selfie Fest previously revealed text messages that Sean Riley, an aide to Ron Johnson, reached out to a Pence aide to arrange a handoff of fake election certificates for Michigan and Wisconsin. Johnson told reporters after the committee revealed his aide's involvement that he was basically unaware of the communication that his office received the slate of electors from Kelly's office. He said his chief of staff did the right thing by contacting the vice president's office about the list, and Pence's team declined the electors. My chief of staff contacted the vice president's staff and said, "Do you want this?" They said no, and we didn't deliver it. That's the end of the story, Johnson said at the time. Yeah, there was a lot of confusion. The problem that I have with this is not necessarily the fact that there was confusion. There was. The problem that I have with this is you need to, in the witch hunt that you're trying to push off here, A, either arrest somebody, first and foremost, or B, and this is the most important part, you need to show direct involvement of the former president and malice. Because I have yet to see any evidence of both of them. I've seen a lot of conjecture that would fall apart under the slightest bit of cross-examination, but no concrete evidence of intent and malice from the person you're trying to witch hunt after. From Fox News, a story that continues to get crazier, and if you've got the kids in the car listening, you might want to do some earmuffs right about here too, because we're going to get into some adult topics here now. Ohio 10-year-old's alleged illegal immigrant rapist, 27, was listed as minor in abortionist report to state. From Thomas Catenacci. The Guatemalan illegal immigrant charged with raping and impregnating an Ohio 10-year-old who traveled to Indiana for an abortion, who is likely also an illegal immigrant herself, and the daughter of an illegal immigrant who was potentially, I've not seen this proven, also impregnated by the same Guatemalan illegal immigrant. Like I say, the more information that comes out about the story, the worse it gets. Was listed as a minor in the report the Indiana-based abortionist sent to authorities. Dr. Caitlin Bernard reported that the alleged rapist was approximately 17 years old in an official filing to the Indiana Department of Health obtained Thursday by Fox News Digital. On Wednesday, Ohio authorities charged 27-year-old Gerson Fuentes, an illegal immigrant from Guatemala, with the rape of a minor under 13 years old in the case. Fuentes confessed to the crime to Columbus Police Department investigators. Okay, I say, you give me new name, clean slate, and send me over border again. I'll come back under my new name, okay? Oops, that's totally not what happened. However, the 10-year-old's mother said the daughter was fine, and everything they said about Gerson Flores is a lie when confronted Thursday by a Telemundo reporter. We watched that video on Friday, I believe. The alleged rape made headlines earlier this month after Bernard told the Indy Star on July 1st that she had performed the abortion for a young rape victim who she said was forced to cross state lines from Ohio in order to receive the procedure. Ohio implemented a 6-week abortion ban shortly after the Supreme Court overturned the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, which granted women the federal right to an abortion. You have come to another state, leaving a state that actually doesn't have a defined 6-week abortion ban. Yes, it has a heartbeat bill, but there's no number in there. That has carvos for rape and incest, life of the mother, 2 of those things, possibly all 3. It's entirely possible. Could be involved in all of this. And you've gone into a state that has dubious reporting practices or gone to an abortionist who appears to have an agenda. I'm sorry, I have questions here. It's hard to imagine that just in a few short weeks we'll have no ability to provide that care, Bernard told the Indy Star in that time, referencing a potential similar abortion ban that could go into effect in Indiana following the High Court's ruling. Following Bernard's comments, President Biden referenced the incident during a speech on July 11th. On July 3rd, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem was asked during a CNN interview whether she would force the young victims of rape to have a baby. So, there seems to be a lot more problem with this. Now, the fact that the father was listed as a minor meant that there was no need to have an investigation. Even with a 10-year-old involved, there was no need to have an investigation, which is bothersome point number 1. And bothersome point number 2 is the fact that Mommy Dearest is coming out and saying, oh, everything that you hear about this guy is a lie. Man, do I have questions about this entire thing. And more is going to come out, and this story is just going to go back and get worse and worse and worse. But the pro-aborts are out there emptying out their wallets. $180,000 donated to doctor who performed 10-year-old girl's abortion to help with legal fees and security. From Kayla Dwyer. Doctors and mindless lemming leftoids across the country helped raise about $180,000 for an Indiana University obstetrician gynecologist to pay for security and legal expenses after she became the focal point in the abortion debate over providing the procedure to a 10-year-old rape victim. The saga unfolded earlier this month after Dr. Caitlin Bernard told the Indianapolis Star, which is part of the USA Today network, that she treated the 10-year-old girl from Ohio. After Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, Ohio's trigger law went into effect, banning abortions after 6 weeks, with no text that actually says the word 6 weeks. The girl's story went viral, appearing in news outlets across the country and becoming a flashpoint for the abortion debate. It became a talking point for abortion rights supporters, including President Biden, some opponents. And news outlets criticized the story as unproven, but criminal charges and court testimony earlier this week confirmed this disturbing story, which, by the way, I still have questions about. But they have brought 6 figures of donations to this particular doctor, who, for all intents and purposes, intended to somehow cover this all up, so we could have the narrative without any sort of details. The 17 thing really bothers me, yo. A team of Abban providers from across the country launched a GoFundMe that had raised nearly $180,000 from about 2,400 donors as of Saturday evening. So, going back to the top of the show, going back to what we talked about here, you can have a GoFundMe for the guy who shot into this apartment for his funeral costs. You can have a GoFundMe. For this garbage human, both of whom, by the way, broke laws. But if Kyle Rittenhouse raises for living expenses or for a legal offense, oh, well, we can't go back and do that because we don't allow raising of funds on our platform for legal expenses of people who are accused of a crime. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? Somebody needs to remind GoFundMe of the fact that they're raising money for legal defense for somebody who is accused of covering up a rape of a minor. And by the terms of service that were brought down, this should be shut down immediately. Planned Parenthood of Great Northwest Hawaii, Alaska, Indiana, Kentucky announced Friday it would also provide Bernard with security services and assistance with legal fees, which means that you and I, through tax money, are providing Bernard with security services and assistance with legal fees. All right. So, yes, more and more problems that we see with this particular story. All right. We got a few more here. Let's see if we can't finish out the slate of news that we have here for the day before we head over and check out the Daily Ignoramus, who is not going to be doing a regular stream. He's going to be doing a road stream because apparently he's traveling somewhere. From Axios, Betsy DeVos calls for abolishing the Department of Education. From Julia Shapiro. Based. Former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos said at a conservative education summit on Saturday she believes the Department of Education should be abolished, according to the Florida Phoenix. DeVos's rejection of the department she once led was well received at the Moms for Liberty Summit, which provided training on how to develop conservative majorities on local school boards, the Phoenix reported. I personally think the Department of Education should not exist, DeVos told the crowd in Tampa, Florida, per the Phoenix. The summit is part of the so-called parental rights movement, which arose in response to efforts to curb the spread of the pinko pox in schools, particularly mask and vaccination mandates. Florida's been ground zero for many of these efforts to increase parental involvement and reduce teachers' autonomy over classroom decisions. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis also issued an executive order in August of 2021 banning mask mandates in schools. The state's so-called Don't Say Gay bill, which went into effect on July 1st, bans instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity for children in kindergarten through 3rd grade. It also allows parents to sue the schools and teachers who discuss these topics. I don't think the Department of Education should exist. I think that should be a local thing. That's what we have school boards for. And if your local school board fails to meet the educational requirements that you need, that should A, be on the people who are on the school board who need to be more involved, and B, should be an indicator that you probably shouldn't move into that neighborhood if you have kids. Should all be local. I agree with DeVos. From ABC News, Joe Manchin is intentionally sabotaging the president's agenda, according to Bernie Sanders. I don't know if we will have video of this. I actually might refresh this page to see if we can't get the video. Let's see what we can get for this. Yep, we do have the video of this, of Bernie Sanders saying this, which we won't do the full interview, but come on, be silent for just a moment. Bernie Sanders on Sunday castigated Manchin after the West Virginia Democrat said he wouldn't support legislation focused on climate change and tax changes, citing his concerns over high inflation. Manchin is intentionally sabotaging the president's agenda, what the American people want, what the majority of us in the Democratic caucus want. Even though I'm not a Democrat, I caucus with them. Nothing new about this, Sanders told ABC This Week co-anchor Martha Raddatz. Let's listen.
It's good to see you this morning, Senator Sanders. President Biden is back from his trip, a trip that has gotten a lot of blowback from even your fellow Democrats, especially that fist bump with the Saudi crown prince. You've referred to Saudi Arabia as a brutal dictatorship that crushes democracy. Should Biden have gone?
No, I don't think so. You have a leader of that country who was involved in the murder of a Washington Post journalist. I don't think that type of government should be rewarded with a visit by the President of the United States.
But at the heart of the discussions was oil, and President Biden said that Saudis would take action in the coming weeks. Could that make a difference? And doesn't that explain why he went? What would you have done?
Well, I'm sure that, Martha, I'm sure that is why he went. But the truth of the matter...
So would you just ignore the Saudis? How concerned are you about a recession?
Americans died. So the struggle, the rich get richer.
Senator,
so
I want to turn...
Independent people looking at Washington and they're saying, you know what? You don't represent me. You don't know what's going on in my life. I can't afford health care. I can't afford the cost of prescription drugs. I can't afford child care. What are you doing about it? And what people are doing about it is taking money from super PACs or being influenced by super PACs, and the rich get richer.
Senator,
so what we need
I
to
want
do
to
is
turn...
bring all of our people to... Yeah, go ahead.
Senator, I want to turn to Congress and the agenda there. Senator Joe Manchin, of course, abruptly pulled the plug this week on the Democrats'
No, Martha,
plans
he didn't
to
abruptly.
pass...
Martha,
okay,
okay.
He abruptly, on Friday,
he didn't abruptly do anything.
He was
has
negotiating for a
sabotaged
while.
the president's agenda. No. Look, if you check the record 6 months ago, I made it clear that you have people like Manchin, Sinema to a lesser degree, who are intentionally sabotaging the president's agenda, what the American people want, what a majority of us in the Democratic caucus want. Nothing new about this. And the problem was that we continue to talk to Manchin like he was serious. He was not. This is a guy who is a major recipient of fossil fuel money, a guy who has received campaign contributions from 25 Republican billionaires.
Okay, Senator, okay, you say he wasn't serious, but Manchin says his main goal is to do what's good for West Virginia, and he's worried about inflation. Listen to what he told the West Virginia radio station. Listen to this, please.
Is that...
Inflation is absolutely killing many, many people. They can't buy gasoline. They have a hard time buying groceries. Everything they buy and consume for their daily lives is a hardship to them.
Your reaction to that, Senator?
Well, look, the same nonsense that Manchin has been talking about for a year. West Virginia, it's a beautiful state. I've had the pleasure of being there. Great people. It is one of the poorest states in this country. You ask the people of West Virginia whether they want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and eyeglasses. You ask the people of West Virginia whether we should demand that the wealthiest people in large corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. Ask the people of West Virginia whether or not all people should have health care as a human right like in every other country on earth. That's what they will say. In my humble opinion, you know, Manchin represents the very wealthiest people in this country, not working families in West Virginia or America.
And Senator Sanders, I want to end with, if these provisions don't get passed, doesn't...
All right, so that's what I wanted to touch on with that and where that came from. It's funny that Bernie Sanders now is coming out and accosting the poorest people of West Virginia and trying to put words into their mouth of, this is what it is that they want, when they overwhelmingly vote for the party that denounces these things, number one. And the people who are most vulnerable to inflationary costs that have to wonder, like Joe said, if they can go back and buy groceries or gas or whatever it is that they need to buy. Because they are the poorest people in this country. And if you want to go print more dollar bills and devalue the currency even more, you got a problem. But Bernie Sanders, everybody. Speaking of inflation, as we get down into the harvest season and we start getting to that point, and we start seeing fewer bounties. By the way, the produce department in our local Woodman's is absolutely decimated. So are a lot of the grocery areas too, but the produce department is just decimated. The hot dog department too, by the way. Even some of the other meat that's starting to come in. We are starting to have major supply chain issues, even worse than what we had under the Pinko Pox. But lawmakers urge Biden to waive tariffs on fertilizer after he helped the solar industry. From Charlotte Pence Bond. Lawmakers are calling on President Biden to help farmers by waiving tariffs on fertilizer in light of soaring fertilizer costs, pointing out that Biden took similar action last month to help boost solar production. Yeah, but lowering the tariffs on fertilizer helps Russia. Lowering the tariffs on solar production helps China. And you know where his priorities are. Farmers across the country are feeling the pinch as fertilizer costs have increased this year due to supply chain delays from the war in Ukraine. The price of nitrogen fertilizer, ammonia, went down 30% in May, according to Bloomberg, but was still 87% higher than it was last year. Mike Wade, the executive director of the California Farm Water Coalition, told the Daily Wire over emails that the cost of fertilizer are one of the biggest expenses when it comes to producing food. Any relief, including reducing tariffs, suspending federal and state fuel taxes, and boosting energy production, would help all Americans by getting more food to grocery stores at lower prices. Wade added. Several senators and representatives wrote a letter to Biden on Thursday urging him to waive the duties on fertilizer imports imposed by his admin on fertilizer items from Morocco, and to place a moratorium on any new duties on specific fertilizer from Trinidad and Tobago. Here's a question, and I understand that there's going to be union labor that's involved in this, but I mean, is there anybody in this country that knows how to make fertilizer? I know it will not help for this planting season. I understand that. But is there anybody in this country that understands how to make fertilizer? Can we do that here? At all? For any reason? Last month, Biden waived tariffs on solar panels from Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam for 2 years and used the Defense Production Act to spark the creation of solar panels in the United States. A probe into the four nations had previously been announced in March and is reportedly looking into whether solar panel imports from specific nations were avoiding tariffs on products manufactured in China. Okay, so I guess I was wrong on that. They weren't coming from China. This isn't the first time lawmakers have attempted to secure aid for farmers. In March, Senator Roger Marshall and Representative Tracy Mann, both of Kansas, two of the lawmakers who signed Thursday's letter, introduced a bill that would create a temporary waiver of countervailing and anti-dumping duties relating to fertilizer or fertilizer ingredients. Yeah, well, we need to do this. It needs to get to that point. But we'll see if they can come back to find somebody else, or a way to get this done. But as I mentioned, if you can buy a vegetable, buy it, freeze it, can it if you've got a pressure canner. If you can grow something, even if it's in milk jugs, grow it. Anything to take the pressure right now off of the markets. Grow it and grow it now. You're going to want it and need it. Every time, because this also affects what we go and feed our animals. Our beef and our pork. When you're at the store, buy that can of Spam. I understand that the regular beef that you would freeze is more expensive, but go buy that can of Spam. Can of tuna. Something to keep your protein up after all this. Get rice. Get beans. This is going to get hard in a hurry. And you don't want to be left holding the bag. And I'm not saying to go out and panic buy and spend $400 at the grocery store right now. Don't go and do that. But spread it out over several trips. 1 extra can of Spam a trip. 1 can of canned vegetables a trip, something non-perishable. I've been doing that lately too. Canned green beans, canned corn, stuff like that. Another can of tuna. Another pepper that I can throw into the bag of peppers that I have. Cut it up. And put it in the bag. It's time to be proactive, guys. What is a woman? 97% audience score. Some good news, and we are going to have to start wrapping this up here because it's almost daily. Well, it's going to be daily ignoramus time fairly shortly. But let's grab a couple more out of this. Tennessee governor. School voucher program to start immediately. From Kimberly Crucy and Jonathan Matisse. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee announced Wednesday that his admin will immediately begin rolling out his long-blocked school voucher program after a judge lifted an injunction that had prevented it from being implemented. Starting today, we will work to help eligible parents enroll this school year as we ensure Tennessee families have the opportunity to choose the school that they believe is best for their child, Lee, a Republican, said in a statement. Lee added the Tennessee Department of Education will make ESA resources available online and in the coming days. Wednesday's decision comes as Arizona Governor Doug Ducey signed one of the most comprehensive school voucher programs in the country into law last week. Under that program, every parent in Arizona would be able to take public money and use it for their children's private school tuition or other education costs. Meanwhile, a West Virginia voucher program that would have incentivized families to pull their children out of K-12 public schools was recently struck down. West Virginia AG Patrick Morrissey has since said he plans to appeal the decision in support of one of the most far-reaching school choice programs in the country. In Tennessee, the program is considered more modest. Known as education savings accounts, eligible families would be allowed to use up to $7,000 in public tax dollars in private schooling, tuition, and other pre-approved expenses. The goal was to enroll up to 5,000 students in the first year, potentially reaching as many as 15,000 students in its fifth year. Just hours prior to Lee's announcement that the voucher program would be implemented this year, the state's attorneys told the panel of judges that decisions haven't been made. Stephanie Bergmeyer of the Attorney General office said that some of the deadlines would be based on the participating schools and when they would require a student to apply and for their seat to be accepted. Here's the thing about schools. Now, first off, I know that even with the voucher program, not everybody's going to be able to send their kids to a private school. Some of them are just going to have too high requirements for admission. Some of them are still going to be too expensive. But I want to highlight one of the problems with school choice programs, and that is the fact that if you really want to see an improvement in the public schools, to see them finding where their flaws are and getting them fixed, which we do need to fix our public schools. We cannot entirely rely on private schools as much as I would love to rely on private schools for everything. We cannot entirely rely on private schools. But you need to make sure that if you're pulling a student out of the public school, that his tuition, his money goes with him. Make the public schools compete for their dollars. Make them have to look down, look internally, look inside themselves and say, what are we doing wrong? And how is it that we can improve our schools so we can get some of that money back? To take it away from our private competitors. How do we do that? How do we get this money back away from our private competitors? It's time to take the monopoly away from them and make sure, again, that if they're not servicing students to the best of their ability, they're not getting funded. Plain and simple. I know, teachers have to do their own school supplies and this and that and the next thing. Well, Again, if you want the best, then you have to compete for those dollars. And I think a big part of that would be getting rid of the chaff, which the teachers union would absolutely balk at entirely, but get rid of the teachers that don't want to be there, that don't want to teach, that just want to be there for the paycheck. Zero Hedge tweets out, Nancy Pelosi urges support of $50 million CHIPS bill hours after disclosing $8 million NVIDIA stake. And since Zero Hedge is not green check verified, we can take this from the New York Post. Nancy Pelosi's husband buys millions in computer chip stocks before big subsidy vote. From Rich Kelder. It is time to outlaw stock ownership by politicians and their families. House Speaker Pelosi's husband purchased up to $5 million in stock options on a computer chip company ahead of a vote on legislation next week that would deliver billions of dollars in subsidies to boost the chip manufacturing industry, new financial disclosures show. Paul Pelosi purchased on June 17th 20,000 shares of NVIDIA, a top semiconductor company, worth $1 million to $5 million, the Daily Caller reported, citing disclosure reports filed by the House Speaker. Senators are expected to convene as early as Tuesday to vote on a bipartisan competition bill to set aside $52 billion with a B to boost domestic semiconductor manufacturing and give tax credits for production. So, tax cuts for the rich, Reuters reported. It certainly raises the specter that Paul Pelosi could have access to some insider legislative information. Craig Holman, a government affairs lobbyist for the left-wing think tank Public Citizen, told the Daily Caller News Foundation, "This is the reason why there's a stock trading app that exclusively monitors Paul's trading activity and then its followers do likewise." Yeah, I am actually going to be getting in on that right now. After the show, I'm going to be going and finding the Nancy Stock Trader app. Because this is insider trading that they are not going to be doing a damn thing about. And hey, the rest of us might as well get in on it too. More on the energy crisis. Mayor Pete. I have to remember that I have a feeling that there are kids watching right now. From something that was told to me over the weekend. I gotta be careful with the insults that I do now. The last thing I need to do is have my nephew go to school and have to explain to his dad who Mayor Buttplug is. Mayor Pete just bragged that high gas prices are pushing Americans to electric vehicles. Now you know why the Biden admin refuses to unleash American energy.
We're for cutting the cost of electric vehicles, because when you have an electric vehicle, then you're also going to be able to save on gas, but you got to be able to afford it in the first place. Right. Now we're actually starting to see on some models the costs come to where even if your car payment's a little higher, your gas payment will be a little lower and you come out ahead. But the prices still need to come down for most Americans to be able to get in an EV. We're for cutting the cost of electric vehicles, because when you have an electric
I wonder how many of their stock portfolios have EVs in them. All right, we got to start wrapping it up here. In fact, I think I'm going to wrap it there, except for I wanted to grab this one and this one. Just to remind you of what's happening and what it is you're paying for. Amazon's Ring has provided doorbell footage to police without owner's consent 11 times so far this year. Yeah, apparently you don't need a warrant when a private company wants to go back and give up information that's in the cloud. And by the way, there's a reason that I would never have one of these. As useful as it would be, there's a reason I would never have one of these. From Brian Fung. Amazon's smart doorbell company Ring has provided surveillance footage to law enforcement without a warrant or the consent of the doorbell owners 11 times this year alone, according to a letter Amazon was sent to Congress earlier this month. Yeah, see, that's a problem. That is a big problem. Because once it's up in the cloud and once Amazon has it, you don't own that data anymore. That's part of the reason they're trying to move everything out to cloud computing and not physical copies of anything either. Is because once that's up in the cloud, you own nothing. You have nothing. Amazon owns that, and they can give that away without you being warranted. I would have a smart doorbell. I would build it, but it would be built into a Raspberry Pi, connected by Bluetooth to what the doorbell camera was, with a motion sensor, of course, and all being done internally, not externally. I'm not against having a thing like that. It's just a matter of getting that data over to Amazon, who now owns it, because it's cloud computing. The disclosure highlights the degree of Amazon's control over data generated by the doorbells, cameras, and microphones, as well as its deepening relationships with thousands of police departments across the country. The July 1st letter responding to questions by Ed Markey and made public by his office on Wednesday shows that Ring frequently makes its own good faith determinations as to whether to provide surveillance data to law enforcement absent a warrant or the consent of the doorbell owner. If you have a Ring, get rid of that. And again, as something that I would otherwise normally advocate for, but the fact that that data goes out to the cloud. And you have no proprietary ownership of it anymore. Get rid of it. Under its policies, Ring reserves the right to respond immediately to urgent law enforcement requests for information in cases involving imminent danger of death or serious physical injury to any person. The letter read, the company also requires police to fill out special emergency request forms if there's an urgent need to bypass the normal law enforcement process, according to the letter. The problem isn't the fact that they do it and they bypass it for major serious physical injury cases. That's fine. I understand that. But the fact that they can do it for that means that they can do it for any other little thing that you do. Oh, you spoke out against the government? Oh, well, I guess we're just going to have to turn that surveillance over to the police, the thought police. Oh, you wanted to smoke a little bit of weed? Oh, we're sorry. We're going to have to put that footage over to something here. It's not about what they actually do, which seems to be for good purposes. It's about what they can do. And if you have a Ring, get rid of it. I would say if you have an Echo, get rid of it too, but everything is so convenient that they're listening to you through your phone anyway. Alright, and the last one, just because this was funny, and then we'll do rules of acquisition, head out of here for the day. Kira, at Kira Won't Miss, says that this lawsuit is about to be nasty. Wow! Now, I, of course, have questions about this, because it seems to me that there should have been some sort of safeguard in place to make sure that a vehicle can't drive through there. That would either be on the city, on the construction company, or elsewhere. And yes, we should also be sitting back here and seeing why the operator felt that he could do that if these safeguards were not in place. Now, was there a safeguard in place? I have no idea. Did a guy drive around the barricade? If he drove around a barricade, then he's not getting a lawsuit. He's not getting a payout for that. And this is his own fault. If he drove around a place that was clearly cordoned off. And yes, I have seen people do that. There may have been recent history where I have done that. But it does behoove you to assess the situation as well. They're doing construction on one of the main routes that I take to work right now, which is why I've been trying to keep before the 9:30 mark before we head out of here and keep bailing at it. They're doing a pretty major construction on one of those main roads, and for the first few couple weeks of it, I was still driving through that because at the times that I was going through, they weren't doing the work on the road, but they put the barriers up anyway to get people to condition to not taking that road or adjusting their travel times accordingly. But yes, now with all the equipment that's on the road that you can see from the main roads, now it's very, very clear that it is not the time to go and attempt to go down that road because you may wind up like this van. All right. Let's check in with the rules of acquisition, and let's go join our friends at the Daily Ignoramus already in progress. So the last thing we do on Monday is we check in with the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition. This is a religious set of rules that has to do with commerce and trade, both with the Ferengi themselves on their own planet, and with trade with other species across the galaxy, noting the fact that trade and capitalism is one of the major portions of the Ferengi religion. Now, I hope to enter the Golden Treasury when I pass away, and I do hope that many of you will also go as well and join the Golden Treasury. So we will look at how these are used in the Star Trek canon, and also how we can turn around and use these in real life. Because these, even though they're meant to be comical criticisms of capitalism, many of these can be adapted for use in our everyday lives. We look at the second 88th rule of acquisition because, according to canon, there are two different ways that it was used. The 89th rule of acquisition also has two different interpretations based on the source of canon. So we are first going to look at the 89th rule of acquisition per the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition DS9 reference book. And that is, ask not what your profits can do for you, but what you can do for your profits. Now, profit is seen as most important above all other things in the Ferengi society and the Ferengi religion. And it's notable that they could come back out and they could see this, seeing a profit as a sort of a religious write-off of this. But how can we apply this in real life? Well, one of the things that we look at when we go to start for business, when we go into working for other people, or trying to do a side hustle like I'm trying to do now, is what can you do for your profits? Because if you don't feed them, grow them, you're working for free and time is money. So what can you do for your profits? I've started to ask, hey, if you can spare a little bit, hit the PayPal. Don't hit the Buy Me a Coffee, because I found out on July 1st that they have become very grappled, and I need to take them out of my rotation over on the chat. But when we look at me asking now for donations, but also trying to build community, I ask you, the most important thing you can do is not to give me money. I appreciate it, don't get me wrong. I love money. That's part of the reason we're doing this segment, is I love money a lot. It's ridiculous. I actually probably should slow down on that just a little bit. But regardless, I love money and I love profit. But the most important thing you guys can do is go out and tell a couple friends and get them in here with you. Do they agree with us on everything? Maybe not, but we get in a spirited discussion. And by the way, I noticed that today was kind of quiet in chat, but the more you guys chat in chat too, that also helps. That pushes us up to the main page on Twitch, and also on YouTube, that pushes us up for that. Now, we're always going to be suppressed behind priority creators, so we may never see growth on YouTube based on the chat, but that does push us up into a different tier, and especially at Twitch, that helps us get promoted. But most importantly, the more people watching, the better off we're going to be. So share this out with your people, because I'm trying to feed my profit. I'm asking what I can do for my profits, and just asking simple things like that. If you've got the Amazon Prime subscription and you're not currently putting it out to some ethot on Twitch, consider just hitting that subscribe button, scrolling about halfway down the page and saying 1 free month with Prime. You don't have to pay anything out of pocket, but Amazon will pay me for that. And it's about $2.50. Get in the Discord. Get some more people in the Discord, where both we can go back and introduce more people to some of the other shows who are going to do self-promo in my Discord, but also have good discussions. I put goals into the Discord. Let's have at least one active conversation a day in the Discord, whether it be about a news topic or whether it be about just frustration, somebody's activities in the kitchen, or anything else, or maybe even something that we're praising about. And at least one voice chat a week, which I had about 6 people in, and we had a 4-hour conversation about customs, biomedical research, and a host of other things for 4 hours yesterday. That was very much appreciated. We can get more of that. We can even get some, if the server gets crowded enough, we can get some break-off rooms in there. So if people want to continue down the path or don't think they're being heard, they can jump to another room. But that's where we're at. Try to feed my profits, do what I can for my profits to see what they can do to work for me. So that's a good one, and it's well timed too, by the way. So absolutely, definitely go and check that out, and go check out some of the other ways to reach out to me on the Twitter, on the Discord. We have a Gilded. It's very quiet because Gilded is not known by as many people, but we have one out there. Definitely go and check that out. And with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. Where's my outro music? I don't think I have it up because I think I had to restart over the weekend. I think I had to restart a couple times. Security update. Regular update. I got to restart my phone again too, actually. Because they did a software update, then a security update almost immediately after that. And they couldn't do them both together. The fist bump to end all fist bumps. Which one is Khashoggi and which one is Biden, Arvold? Where is my outro music? Why can't I find that? There it is. It's on a different screen, that's why I can't find it. Alright, so with that, we're going to head out of here. I'm going to go over and see if I can't find the Daily Ignoramus on Twitch, but usually when he's driving, he does a YouTube exclusive. So we'll see what's happening with that and where that goes, and if we can't find him, we'll go rate somebody else just to keep the channel active. But do go check out the Daily Ignoramus over on YouTube and all of his various other platforms as well. I'll be back here a little bit later on here. We'll do some more Fallout 3, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to do that. I don't think we're going to play any other game right now until we finish up with that one, because I really want to play a video game that's not Fallout on stream. And in real life, for that matter, too. That's really all that I've played since I moved into this place, and that's been 4 years. So we'll go play that. I know that once we get done with Fallout 3, we're going to be doing Mass Effect next, so that'll be kind of fun. And I'm doing that as blindly as I possibly can, by the way. Just to keep in mind the fact that people are going to want to try and give spoilers, and I'm going to try to avoid spoilers on a 20-year-old game. But yeah, we'll be playing Mass Effect next over here, so come back and join us for that. Otherwise, if you're not into the video games, we'll be back here tomorrow morning before the 7:40 mark, because we won't have as much to go on to. So join us here tomorrow morning. Bring a friend for more contemporary. We will see you then. Video games at about 5:30 or so. That time is a little bit fluid depending on what other people are doing on the internet and what people are doing in real life. Otherwise, back here tomorrow morning for more contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.